I don't know why, maybe because I beat people up, but I don't know what it is. There's this big misconception that I fight all the time. I don't.
So our next guest is Sharks forward Evander Kane. First of all, what are your thoughts on, because we essentially entered there, flip the napkin over territory where anybody could throw out an idea about how to bring hockey back. What are your thoughts about the actual plan that's now in place?
For all the circumstances that, have happened over the last couple of months, I mean, it's a pretty good plan. Obviously, it's unfortunate that we're not going to be a part of it, but, I think it's great. I think it's going to help create more revenue for everybody involved, and obviously not lose as much money as not playing would entail. So at the end of the day, this is a business, and these are business decisions being made here.
You're a goal scorer, but what I've always respected most is you are an enforcer on the ice, and as a part of that, led the NHL in penalty minutes 2 years running. How do you view that stat in particular?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's all warranted. That's for sure. It's easy to pick up penalty minutes in today's game. I think I maybe had 2 fights this year. So I wouldn't call myself an enforcer, but I definitely don't let anybody take any liberties with myself or my teammates out there. That's for sure. So I think being as versatile as possible is a good trait to have, and obviously I get paid to put the puck in the net, and that's my number one job, and that's what I love to do first and foremost. But that physical style and kind of leading with that at times can definitely help create different opportunities for me and my teammates throughout the course of a game and a season.
You said only 2 fights this year?
Yeah, yeah. My career average is 2 fights a year. There's this big I don't know why, maybe because I beat people up, but I don't know what it is. There's this big misconception that I fight all the time. I don't. That's not what I do. I wouldn't get paid the amount of money that I get paid if I was just fighting. So I don't know. That has a lot to do with different things in terms of the perception of me as a hockey player sometimes. But I get paid to put the puck in the net and contribute offensively first and foremost. So that's my job.
See, I was raised around football, and so in football, there's no way to fight. You know what I'm saying? So when guys hate each other and they get into it after whistle, they both get a 15-yard penalty, and it's like, damn, you never get to see any resolution to it. So to me, there's a great sense of peace when it's like, just go fist to cuff for 5 seconds, and then boom, we're back to playing some hockey. You don't see that.
I'm big. I'm a big supporter of fighting and staying and being in hockey. That's for sure. I think it's with the way our sport is and the competitive nature of it. I think it's required. I think it, like you mentioned, it's a great way to resolve things throughout the course of a game, and also change momentum, and it's a nice tool to have when you're a part of a group.
I really respect how you're willing to be yourself, because it seems to me like hockey sort of discourages guys from having personalities, and it's never made sense to my brain. Why do you think that is? How has that come to be the culture?
Well, I think it's been the culture for such a long time, and nothing's really changed, and that can be said about a lot of different things, not just hockey. But I think it's there's been a slow transition process into trying to create that change, or at least having some sort of dialogue about it. But there's a long way to go, and you look at some of the other sports like football, for example, and what makes that sport so entertaining is because of the players having the freedom to be able to showcase their personalities, and the league kind of piggybacking off of that, because at the end of the day, if there's no players, there's no league. So by promoting your players and promoting the right players and players that want to be promoted, that have good personalities, is an asset. And I think we haven't done the best job of using those assets to the best of our ability, at least since I've been in the league, and probably further back.
What league does that best, and how can the NHL steal from it?
Oh, I mean, by far the NBA. I mean, and the easiest way to tell is who makes the most money. That's what this all boils down to, right? It's money, and the NBA player, they make the most amount of money annually outside of any other athlete. So that's how you judge those type of things, is who's doing the best marketing job. Because if you're telling me that basketball is a better sport than hockey, I will have that debate with anybody all day long. Like that, it's not even, like, in my opinion, it's not even close what the better sport is. It's hockey. So then why is hockey not on the same level in terms of marketing, popularity, as basketball? And there's an array of answers to that. And I'm not going to get into them all, but that would be the sport that I would suggest and recommend and say has uses their athletes in the best way possible. That's for sure.
I don't need you to get into the array of answers here, but what's the biggest one? If hockey's a better sport than basketball, what's the biggest reason why it's not more popular?
Well, there's a couple. I mean, I would say the affordability for 3 of the 4 major sports. Obviously, the one major sport I'm leaving out is hockey. It's relatively inexpensive to learn how to play, to have access to hockey. There's a lot of different pieces of equipment and resources that you need to have in order to actually play ice hockey. But so that would be one. But the other is, again, it's the popularity of the sport in the U.S. and Canada for sure. Hockey's like football in the South. Mm-hmm. But when you talk about hockey in California or hockey in Arizona or Florida, what have you. Sorry. Okay, thanks. When you talk about hockey in non-traditional places, people don't know who you are. And people don't know that because we aren't marketed as players. And at the same time, it's up to us as players to want to use your platform and brand as an individual to help promote not only yourself, but our sport, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make everybody more money. And no matter what, every athlete that's a professional, they're playing because of, obviously the love of the game, but they're not playing for free. So my thing is that we as NHL players specifically need to get out of this mindset of hockey just being this, whatever you want to call it, blue collar, put your head down, go to work, shut your mouth type of sport. And I think that in, the most simplistic terms I can think of is kind of our culture.
Do you feel like we're starting to break that?
Kind of. Again, long way to go. Yeah.
So while we're on the topic of these other sports, I saw Jalen Ramsey said, a few years back that he would make an NHL team if given 6 months to train. How would that go?
Yeah, I think, I was at the NHL media tour before the season started. I want to say this is 2 years ago, and that question was asked, and I had a good laugh because I think my answer was something like, I'd bet everything in the world that I would be better at his position in 6 months, and he'd be better at my position in 6 months. And I'm going to stick to that. But it'd be very interesting to see, and I think things like that, having those type of collaborations with other athletes coming in and playing your sport and vice versa, those are great things that people would love to see and enjoy seeing. You see it with golf a little bit and the crossover there. But having those crossovers, I think, is great. I think it would be an eye-opener for Jalen in terms of understanding how difficult it is, because, it's easy to take a hit, on 2 feet, but when you put some skates on, it might be a little bit more difficult. But I think it'd be very eye-opening for him.
So if I hit you with 6 months to train, you think you could step on an NFL field? I mean, how much experience do you have?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I would be 10 times better at his position than he'd be at mine.
Interesting. How much experience do you have with other sports?
I played soccer growing up as a kid. I was never allowed to play football just because my parents didn't want me into fully contact. You
can play hockey, but not football. What the hell?
I could pick one or the other. It was just they didn't want me in both because of the physical demand of the body. Play a little bit of basketball, a little bit of baseball, but soccer was probably my. I was probably actually a better soccer player as a kid than I was even a hockey player. So, but hockey was what I loved to do.
Interesting. While we're on the topic of these other leagues, I saw you watch The Last Dance. What did you learn about Michael Jordan and how he climbed to the top of the world?
Well, I learned a lot because, obviously I was super young when he was at his peak and in his prime, especially there in Chicago. So it was, and obviously, you hear the stories, you read about him, the greatness, but to really see it and see some highlights and clips and hear it from him himself was awesome. I thought it was great. I know there's a lot of different speculation and controversy over what he said and what other players are saying, but I'll just take it for what it is. And I thought it was awesome. His mindset and the way, you look at Phil Jackson, the way he coached the team, the way he managed players. And I think there's a lot of lessons that can be taken from it, especially in today's world and how sports is, and kind of to go back and maybe have a little bit of that old school competitiveness in terms of a mentality and ruthlessness and that hatred among teams. I think that's what makes sports great. I think that fuels the competitiveness more. And, I think it makes it for more entertaining, more entertaining games. You look at our series versus Vegas, two teams that absolutely hated each other. I think it was the best series by far for my money that entire year, and it was in the first round.
Is there a Michael Jordan type competitor on the ice? Is there anybody that you would even put in that same category as MJ?
No, I think MJ's in a category of his own. Probably forever. I think what you try to do as an athlete is you try to take bits and pieces of maybe some of the things he believed in and work towards and try to implement those into your mental state and maybe how you go about things. I mean, that entire team, you look at the different characters and how it was handled. I give Phil Jackson a ton of credit because, and Michael, I mean, you look at Dennis Rodman, they let him do what he needed to do to be successful because they trusted him and believed in him that, who cares what Dennis is doing, outside of the gym. We know when he shows up to play, he's going to give us his best. He's going to be at his best. And I think, things like that, when we live in a world today where everybody expects you to act and be like everybody else, I think, to be honest, in a team setting can be detrimental. I think it's great when you embrace everybody's differences and personalities. And I think it was really showcased, especially with the Bulls there, and how they came together as a group with a bunch of different characters.
I totally agree with you. And I think that, sports like the NBA, the NFL, they're so perfectly diverse. And you don't see that much in hockey. And it bothers me a little bit, to be honest with you. So how do we grow the diversity of this great game?
Well, I think a big part of it is letting people know and promoting that there are players that look like myself. There are black players in the league. There are minorities in the league. There's not a lot of us, but there are some. It's incredible how many times, people will think that I'm somebody, if they don't know who I am, they'll think, do you play basketball? Do you play football? Are you a baseball player? Are you a soccer player? I mean, I've even had somebody said before hockey's even come to their mind, they said cricket. I'm thinking,
oh my God.
You know what I mean? So it's incredible how, and call it 50% of the population, that hockey is so far down their thought list in terms of, what sports that are out there that I could play. And it's disappointing because, like I said before, I think hockey is by far the best sport and the hardest sport to play. It's tough to say because, it starts at the top and then you have to have resources and outreach to diverse communities, especially in the U.S., and then the knowledge to be able to explain and teach and help people understand and just gain an interest and ultimately fall in love with our sport, because that's what any kid is looking for, is finding something they love to do. And I think hockey is a great opportunity and a great option that unfortunately a lot of kids don't have those opportunities or options to play.
And given the way that the sport has historically been set up, do you feel like it was harder for you to rise to stardom given that you're a black hockey player in a predominantly white league?
Yeah. Well, I think because I lived in Canada and I'm from Canada, it was definitely easier than if I lived in Texas. That would have been, probably a much bigger challenge. I was also lucky enough to have my dad who's black but played hockey as a kid and at a junior level and university level to be able to help me and teach me and be my teacher of the game. So I had that knowledge and background, so close to home. So I was lucky in that way. But it was still difficult because, I stand out and I walk into a dressing room and I'm the only minority in the dressing room on 99% of the teams that I ever played on. So, and like I said, in a sport and with the culture of everybody has to be kind of the same and they want everybody to look and act and think specifically the thinking is the biggest part. Think the same way. That wasn't me and I wasn't going to conform to what they wanted me to be. And that ruffles feathers with different people. And I don't know why it would, but, and people take that and they run with it and they turn it into bad guy, bad teammate, not a nice guy, whatever it may be, whatever they want to turn it into, that's what they would use to turn, to give a perception to me as a player that just
that's bullshit, right? I mean, that's bullshit.
Well, it is. Of course it is.
It's bullshit.
And like I said, I'm not one to conform. I'm not one to have people tell me what to do if I feel it's not right. And I think there was probably a 2 to 3 year span in my career where I was a lot more reserved than I normally would have been because of so much animosity and backlash to different things I would do or try to do or the way I was perceived as a player. So does that have to do with me being black or half black? Yeah, absolutely it does. But at the end of the day, I think that's the direction that, players such as myself in our league, we need to stay strong on and continue to help grow this game. And I think eventually we'll get there one day. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
And I saw it just a couple of weeks ago. I'm just reading to get ready for this interview, and I was going, "What the hell are we even talking about?" It's you said that racism not only exists back then, but still exists in today's game in 2020. So how, when you were rising, when you were coming up through the hockey ranks, how specifically do you feel and experience that? Is it in the locker room? Is it on the ice? Is it from the coach? Is it from a ref? Where does this come from? And then how do you stop it?
Well, so to answer your last question, you stop it you stop it at the top. The top, they're the one that sets the qualities. They're the one that sets these rules and guidelines and all the other stuff. So it starts there, and it's a trickle-down effect to management, coaches, players, parents, whatever you want to call it, especially in minor hockey, not so much, obviously, the professional hockey. But I was actually I had a conversation the other day. I did an interview with a young kid who was from North Carolina, and he was playing in the GCHL these last couple seasons. And he played 40 games, and he said 20 of those 40 games he encountered racism on the ice. So it was incredible to hear that in today's world. I wasn't surprised by it, but obviously a lot of people were. But in terms of me personally, it's not just somebody saying it to your face or saying a slur. It's systematic racism. It's exclusion. It's little things such as music. I've talked about that a little bit. Everybody plays music, before you go in the game, and you got 20 guys that like a certain genre of music, and you got me who likes a certain genre of music. So that's looked at me not being a team guy or being part of the group. And, that starts at a young age, as young as 10, 11 years old. I had parents, my parents endured a lot of different things, whether it's in the stands or comments and what have you. I mean, I was sitting in the penalty box in this tournament. We were in the finals, and I was the best player on our team, and the other team's goalie, he was a really good player, and the goalie's dad was the other team's coach, and my dad was our coach. And I took a penalty, maybe the second period, and I'm skating to the penalty box. I sit down, and next thing you know, there's like 5 or 6 parents banging on the glass saying, "We should cut your effing legs off. You're a effing monkey. You piece of shit," all this type of stuff. I'm like, this is like, I'm 10 years old at the time. I might have been even younger, 9 or 10 years old. It was Adam hockey. and I was kind of laughing because it was in disbelief that these adults. I go back to the bench. I tell my dad what happened. He kind of just tells me to shake it off because, we're still got to get to play. Anyways, I scored my 5th goal that game. I turn to the crowd and I take a bow because I'm trying to rub it back into their faces a little bit. Anyways, we win the game. We go to shake hands after the game, and me and my dad are the last 2 in our lineup. And when we get to their head coach, he shakes my hand, and then my dad sticks his hand out to shake his hand, doesn't shake my dad's hand, and he says, "Somebody should really knock your head off, you monkey." and I heard it, and it was just incredible. And obviously, what do you want to do? You want to punch that guy in the face, right? But then we have that perception of, well, there's this angry black hockey coach, and there's no context to what really went on. So that's just one example. It was a pretty serious example, but yeah, it definitely. There's tons of stories out there like that, and it's not just black hockey players. It's East Indian hockey players. It's Chinese hockey players. Because in Vancouver, it's a very multicultural city, and hockey's obviously number 1 in Canada. So you do have other minorities that have interest in hockey, but I can tell you right now, there's been a lot of discriminatory incidences regarding minorities, kids, parents. Throughout the course of my lifetime that I've heard about, seen, or endured myself.
I love and respect your honesty because it makes people uncomfortable. And I think people need to be uncomfortable before there's going to be a shift in the environment.
100%. And people are uncomfortable, and you see it not only in players, but in the media. They're super, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to think. They don't know if they should retweet this, like this, comment about that. They don't know what to do, and they're so uncomfortable, so they rather just ignore it. And that's the problem, is when you make people uncomfortable, what do they do about it? What is their response? And a lot of it, and a big problem with it, is they choose to ignore it. And this isn't something that can be ignored, because it's going to continually drag our game down, which I hate. That's the last thing I want. And what it really needs to do is we need to use minorities and more diversity to grow our game and promote our game, because that's what's going to get us to that level where I think hockey needs to be and should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to get fired if I don't ask you at least one quarantine question before we get out of here. So how have you been locking it down? Where have you been? Have you been moving around? Have you been skating? Have you been working out? What's been your plan? What's been your day-to-day?
I just got back from Vancouver a few days ago. I was golfing. Vancouver was operating on a decent amount of normalcy there. So all the golf courses were open, and I was golfing almost every day, which was awesome. And then we just got back down to San Jose, so we're kind of back on lockdown a little bit, quarantining up. As you saw, my dog Georgie here is, she gets a lot of attention. So just been doing that. Probably going to start playing some video games, getting into that a little bit more. And I think the NHL facilities are going to be opening up, so probably start hitting the gym a little bit more as well. So that's been it for me.
It's nothing but honesty and class throughout. Evander, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it, and hope to see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.